Goodbye, Eric. You can call when you have at least a car or an extra $1 million.
With these words, my last girlfriend broke up with me after our first date. If only she could have known how she would regret it later. But first things first. Hello everyone, my name is Eric and I was 20 years old then, almost 21. Although it doesn't matter. Today, I'm going to share my incredible story about how I made $20 million literally from air. Almost went to jail and taught a conniving girl a lesson. Of course, I am guilty of liking beautiful girls. I think you understand what I'm talking about. There were always quite a few girls that I was interested in, but I was attracted to cover girls, and I did not want to settle for less. It was last summer. Grade school was behind me, university ahead of me, and in the present, I had a lot of free time to find a girl who was fully consistent with my ideals. So, I met Deborah, a girl whose profile I liked on a dating site. We started chatting and everything turned out perfectly. She was beautiful, fun, and feisty. Being with her really made me feel strong emotions, and I knew it was mutual. For our first date, I took Deborah to my favorite cafe, and immediately I felt that something was wrong. She was arrogant, giving all my questions one-word answers, and making it clear by her appearance that everyone around her was beneath her. She ate almost nothing and reluctantly agreed to let me take her home. On the way, she said that her expensive shoes were not for long walks. At the door to her house, she finally crushed my hopes and told me that I shouldn't count on anything more without an extra $1 million in my pocket. With that, we parted ways. $1 million? I'll earn several million. I always knew it. I just wasn't ready to flaunt such an amount right after graduation. A single thought flashed through my head, for which I needed my old printer. That night, in the basement of my father's house, I printed my first $100,000 on a color printer. Of course, they couldn't be used in a store, but you could make a lot of cool photos for your profile. And that's what I did. The plan worked. Pretty girls started liking my page, messages with their personal photos and requests to meet up began flowing in. But they all expected to meet a young millionaire and not a simple guy with ambition. So I thought that it would be nice to print bills that would actually make me a real millionaire right then. I took money from my personal savings and bought a new printer. For several months, I did not leave the basement, perfecting the technique of making counterfeit bills. After 3 months, I had $10,000 in my hands. They were $20 bills and looked perfect, just like the real ones. I went to a store far away from home, where I had never been before. I bought chewing gum and chips and gave them my 20. The cashier took my money and handed me change for real, as if nothing had happened. In the store across the street, I just asked to exchange my counterfeit bill for smaller ones, and it worked again. The first week I just printed new fake bills and exchanged them for real ones, and I never returned twice to the same place. But it all ended faster than I thought. One time, I went to a store on the outskirts of a city and, as usual, I handed my 20 to the cashier. He was so anxious. His hands were shaking, and suddenly, the bill was torn. Inside it was white, like paper. I could hardly restrain myself from just running out of there. Do you know what happens for things like this? I was stricken by his words, but nodded. Let's pretend that no one saw anything. He threw my 20 into the trash can. But remember, you are very lucky. This will not happen again. On the way home, I weighed the pros and cons and decided that I should stop while the dreams of a bright future had not yet become a reality behind bars. But still, there was one last thing that I simply had to do. I wanted to take Deborah on a date of her dreams. For clean money, which I managed to exchange during this time, I rented a luxury sports car and a suite in a hotel. I drove up to Deborah's house in a Lamborghini, called her and asked her to look out the window. She came out in about 15 minutes, probably in her very best dress. I got the first kiss before I even got out the first wad of money, which I hoped would impress her. I said that I still have a lot of money for her if she would agree to come with me and do whatever I asked her. It took her no more than a couple of seconds to decide. In the morning, I woke up next to her, very pleased from the previous night's events. Then I took Deborah out of town. I had one more surprise for her. I opened the trunk of a car, It was packed full of money. Several $1 million printed by me on a printer. Deborah seemed to have hearts in her eyes. I took out all the bills from the trunk and put them in one big pile as best as I could. Then I got out the matches and set fire to one of the bills.
Are you an idiot? No, are you really an idiot?
You should have seen her face as she raked in the bills and tried to save them from the fire. Deborah, calm down. All these bills are as fake as you. She didn't even believe me at first, but common sense eventually convinced her. You see, Deborah, once these become ashes, I only have our unforgettable fake day to remember this by, for which I paid with fake money. Oh, how she screamed. It seemed like she wanted to destroy me. I hope she will reconsider her views on money, just like me. I will try to earn my next million in an honest way. That's all. Thank you all for listening to my story.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruth. I was almost 6 years old when something absolutely incredible happened to me. My parents took me to Tanzania to go on a safari. I will never forget the first time I saw a herd of elephants, frolicking zebras, and hippos in the water with frighteningly huge mouths. When a cheetah appeared next to our car, I wanted to feed it. I got a swift reprimand from my parents for that. How could I have forgotten? They had told me several times not to feed the animals during the safari. I wanted so badly to show everyone that I was grown up and that I knew how to deal with animals, that I was terribly embarrassed when it happened. I decided to pout and stop talking to everyone. Of course, this didn't bother my parents one bit. Feeling even more offended, during a special stop for a short rest, I hid from everyone in the bushes. I just wanted to scare my parents a little and was about to come out when I saw giraffes. They were so tall! I was drawn to them like a magnet. But I knew I couldn't go anywhere, so the whole time I kept turning around to make sure I hadn't lost sight of the car. I didn't know why, but the giraffes suddenly pinned their ears back and ran away. I needed to get back too, but suddenly, I heard something whimpering. I went towards the sound and found a little lion cub. He was crying out. One of his paws had gotten stuck between two rocks. He was trying to free himself.
"It's okay, I'll help you,"
I told him. I pulled up on the top stone and freed the cub's foot. Then I petted him for a few minutes.
"Well, that's all. You'd better get back to your mama. I have to get back to mine, too."
But just as I said that, I heard, it was a lioness! She froze and looked right at me. She seemed just huge to me. Never before had I seen such large fangs. The rescued lion cub was flailing about at my feet, and its mother was slowly approaching me. I pushed the lion cub towards her, but it wouldn't leave me. I wanted to run, but my legs had turned to iron out of fear. I remember feeling the lioness's breath on my face and just closing my eyes. That's what I do at home when I thought something was hiding under my bed. But my mother was always there to comfort me, and now she couldn't help me. And then I felt the lioness start sniffing me, and then something rough and wet slid up my cheek. The lioness had licked me. I looked into her eyes and gently held out my hand. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like she was allowing me to pet her. The lioness and her cub walked ahead. In my amazement, I had completely forgotten about my parents and about where I was, and I went after them. I don't remember how long we had been walking when the other lionesses surrounded me. The lioness who brought me into the pride immediately approached me. She seemed to tell the rest of them that I was her own. Then they all parted, and he appeared, the leader of the pride. At that moment, I was really wishing that I could see this lion on our safari from the window of the Jeep. Just not so close. The lion sniffed me, and then lazily yawned and laid to the side. It seemed like everyone was okay with me being there. I remember that I had tried to repeat what I had done with the other cubs, and when they suddenly took off somewhere, I ran after them. But the chase didn't last long. There was a zebra. It was lying on the ground and not moving. The lions took to their meal. The lion cubs also surrounded the zebra. The lionesses kept their distance. Apparently, it wasn't their turn yet. I sat near their prey, but only so as not to differ from other cubs in the pride. I remember that I would have given anything for a glass of water and the chance to see my mother again. Then they all laid down to sleep, and I did too. I don't know how much time had passed, but I was still with my new family. I touched the soft mane of a lion and scratched it behind the ear. When he suddenly stood up, I was right on top of him! Not for long, though. Suddenly, the lions began to scatter. The lionesses took the lion cubs and ran away. I didn't know what was happening and started running after them. Then, I saw a dart in the back of the lioness who had brought me there, and then another in another lioness. I hid under a bush with the other cubs and closed my eyes. Then, I was scooped up in someone's arms. I saw Mom and Dad soon after. It turned out that I had spent almost 4 hours with the lions. They started looking for me as soon as I had disappeared. But when they discovered that I was in the pride and saw me calmly playing with the lion cubs surrounded by lionesses, everyone was shocked. No one could understand how I had managed to stay unharmed with them for so long. But it was decided to minimize risk by briefly euthanizing the animals in order to save me and not harm the lions. I am now 28 years old, and it's been almost 6 years since returning to the pride. Yes, I work in a preserve and look after the young wildcats that are left without parents. I've been friends with lions and leopards for a long time now, and they perceive me as a member of their family. In a way, I'm like a mom to them. I can grab them by the mane, bask in the sun with them in my arms, and wrestle around. I don't know why they accepted me when I was little, but those 4 hours in Africa alone with the lions completely changed my life. I know that they saved me then. After all, who knows what other animals would have done to me on my way? The lion family saved my life, and now I consider it my duty to save them and take care of them. And that's all for me. Thank you for listening to my story.